On September 14th, 2018, executives at Midwest Financial Trust in Columbus, Ohio, discovered $3.7 million missing from their vault. The perpetrator wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was David Chen, a 52-year-old night janitor who had cleaned their offices for 7 years. What investigators uncovered was a story of quiet desperation and the dangerous assumption that invisible people pose no threat. By the time authorities pieced together Chen's scheme, he had crossed 3 state lines with enough cash to disappear forever. The case became one of Ohio's most unusual white-collar crimes, not because of its sophistication, but because of the heartbreaking human story behind it. David Chen had perfected the art of being unnoticed. Standing 5'6" with graying hair and a permanent stoop from manual labor, he moved through Midwest Financial Trust like a ghost. Every weeknight from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Chen cleaned 14 floors of the downtown Columbus high-rise. Born in Taiwan, immigrated to Ohio at 12, Chen had worked custodial jobs for 30 years. His accented English meant most Midwest financial employees rarely spoke to him beyond polite nods. Chen preferred this. He valued solitude over complicated social dynamics. The irony wasn't lost on him. He cleaned up after people who earned more monthly than his annual salary. Executives left expensive pens, forgot designer watches, discarded documents worth more than he made yearly. But Chen had never been tempted. His parents raised him with rigid moral principles. Integrity was more valuable than money. Chen lived alone in a spartanly furnished Clintonville apartment. Single bed, dining table, 13-inch TV, shelves of Chinese novels. One photograph decorated the walls, his parents on their wedding day in Taiwan, young and hopeful. He drove a 2003 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles, maintaining it himself with methodical precision. Neighbors knew him as the quiet man from 2B who worked nights and never caused problems. Chen's routine was structured. Saturday grocery shopping at Giant Eagle, buying rice, vegetables, cheap meat, and expensive imported tea that connected him to home. Sunday afternoons at Easton Town Center, reading Chinese newspapers, watching families enjoy leisure he couldn't afford. At Midwest Financial, Chen was the reliable colleague who arrived early, worked efficiently, never complained. He'd trained new employees, showing proper marble cleaning techniques and timing for vacuuming executive offices. In 7 years, never sick, never late, never problematic. March 15th, 2017 changed everything. The call came at 2:47 a.m. while Chen replaced fluorescent bulbs. His sister May, calling from Taiwan, delivered devastating news. Their mother had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis came suddenly. Weeks of stomach pain dismissed as indigestion until cancer had metastasized to liver and lymph nodes. Without treatment, 3 months to live. Standard Taiwan chemotherapy, 6 months, little hope, but experimental immunotherapy at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston offered real hope. For $400,000 plus travel and accommodation costs. Chen's $28,000 annual salary made this impossible. He had $14,000 in savings from 5 years of frugal living. Minimal credit history. He'd never owned credit cards, paid cash for everything except rent. May had mortgaged her Taiwan apartment, could contribute $50,000. Their mother had no insurance covering experimental American treatments. Chen researched desperately. Medical loans, crowdfunding, charity organizations, immigrant assistance programs. Every path led to the same conclusion. He needed more money than possible through legitimate means, and quickly. The irony suffocated him. 40 hours weekly in a building containing more money than he could spend in lifetimes. Surrounded by people casually discussing 6-figure bonuses and million-dollar portfolios. He overheard executives complaining about tax obligations exceeding his entire income. Watched them discard restaurant receipts representing his weekly grocery budget. Yet none of this wealth was accessible. He was the invisible man emptying trash, cleaning bathrooms, trusted with access to secure spaces, but never considered worthy of notice. The contrast between their casual affluence and his desperate poverty intensified nightly. During this anguish, Chen began noticing previously ignored details. March 28, 2017, emptying conference room wastebaskets, Chen overheard 2 vice presidents discussing weekend cash transfers. They mentioned over $4 million in bearer bonds and cash reserves stored in the vault until Monday due to delayed armored car pickup. Desperation sharpened his attention to significant details. $4 million would save his mother 50 times over. As weeks progressed, Chen noticed security protocols. Marcus Williams, the night guard, made rounds every 2 hours, but spent shifts watching Netflix, more interested in criminology textbooks than actual security. Chen's master custodial card worked on all floors. His 7 years of reliable service made him effectively invisible to security concerns. Most crucially, the vault's secondary access door, installed for equipment deliveries but rarely used, wasn't monitored by cameras due to a blind spot from a structural pillar. Thoughts came gradually, involuntarily. Chen calculated distances, timed sequences, evaluated risks. He told himself these were mental exercises distracting from his mother's condition. But alone in the empty building with computer hums and distant traffic, thoughts became specific and urgent. April 2017, his mother's condition worsened. May's weekly updates grew more desperate. Experimental treatment remained their only hope, but the effectiveness window was closing. Doctors estimated 2 months before cancer progressed beyond help. Chen gathered additional $8,000 through overtime and selling possessions. TV, books, his father's watch. Still impossibly far from the required amount. A GoFundMe campaign raised only $800 over 6 weeks. The mathematics were brutal. Accumulating $400,000 at his savings rate would take 20 years. His mother had months. May 18, 2017. Chen's first concrete step. He drove to Office Depot in Reynoldsburg, purchased a Columbus City map, digital camera, and gridded notebook. Cash payment, avoided eye contact. He told himself he was documenting workplace vulnerabilities to report to management, potentially earning recognition and promotion. The rationalization was thin, but allowed him to proceed. Over the following month, Chen methodically documented Midwest financial security procedures. He photographed the vault from multiple angles, noting camera positions and blind spots. He timed Marcus Williams' unchanged schedule. He mapped building layout, focusing on emergency exits, service elevators, areas avoiding motion sensors and cameras. The vault's backup access required 2 key cards. His custodial master card and supervisor level card carried by Janet Morrison, who worked Thursday, Sunday nights. Morrison was a 58-year-old former Columbus police officer, retired after 25 years, taking security work for insurance in steady hours. She treated Chen with professional courtesy, greeting him by name, asking about family. Morrison never showed suspicion about his activities. Chen's plan was elegantly simple. Wait for nights when large cash reserves were held over weekends, monthly occurrences due to banking irregularities. Incapacitate Morrison temporarily, use both key cards to access the vault, take cash and transportable bonds, create timeline confusion to delay discovery until Monday. This would provide 48 to 72-hour head start before anyone realized money was missing rather than transferred. July-August. Chen refined details, gathering supplies. He researched chloroform, purchasing small quantities from different hardware stores, claiming furniture restoration needs, zip ties from home improvement stores, duct tape from office retailers, first aid kit for Morrison's safety post incapacitation. He researched bus schedules to Cincinnati, Memphis, Indianapolis, Detroit, routes avoiding clear destination patterns, selected cash-accepting motels not requiring identification, opened Akron's safety deposit box using falsified documents for identity papers, cash reserves, emergency supplies. The psychological toll was severe. Chen lost 15 pounds, developed hand tremors affecting precision cleaning, chronic insomnia. Employees noticed he seemed different, but didn't investigate. To co-workers, he remained reliable. To executives, invisible. The moral weight created internal conflict, raised with strong ethics, honesty and hard work as life foundations. His parents immigrated with nothing, building respectable lives through difficult labor and careful saving. Yet his mother was dying, and he had means to save her. The planned theft represented a fraction of Midwest Financial's assets, less than executive bonuses or office renovations. Taking money from those with plenty to save someone with nothing wasn't theft. It was redistribution, cosmic justice correction. These rationalizations provided temporary guilt relief, but couldn't eliminate knowledge that he planned to hurt Morrison. A woman treating him with respect and kindness. Morrison had protected people from criminals exactly like he was planning to become. August 14th, 2017, the dreaded call. May's voice was barely recognizable through tears. Their mother was hospitalized with cancer complications. Doctors estimated 2 weeks remaining without immediate intervention. Treatment window closing rapidly. If therapy didn't begin within 10 days, it would be too late. David, I don't know what else to do, May sobbed. I've sold everything. I've borrowed from everyone I know. The doctors say she's asking for you constantly. Chen stared at his parents' wedding photograph and made his final decision. He would commit the planned crime, wire money for treatment, accept consequences. The alternative, watching his mother die knowing he could have saved her, was unacceptable. That night, Chen wrote detailed letters to his sister and mother, explaining his actions and expressing love. Everything was motivated by love, not greed. He accepted full responsibility. He sealed letters, left them on his kitchen table for investigators. Then he showered, dressed for work, and drove to Midwest Financial for his final custodial shift. Friday, August 18th, 2017 began like any workday, but every action carried significance. Chen arrived at 10 p.m., nodded to Marcus Williams, took the service elevator to begin cleaning. Perfect timing and complete normalcy were required until the crucial moment. Chen's hands shook organizing custodial supplies. The familiar building felt charged with danger and consequence. Every sound amplified. Computer hums, distant high street traffic, ventilation whispers. 11:30 p.m. Chen confirmed through overheard conversations that over $3.2 million in cash and bonds were held over the weekend due to Cleveland truck breakdown, forcing pickup schedule reshuffling. Janet Morrison had arrived for her Thursday-Sunday shift, conducting initial security sweeps. Chen watched through custodial office monitors, timing her movements, confirming observed patterns. Morrison was thorough but predictable. Chen followed normal routine until 1:45 a.m., when Morrison would be in the 14th floor break room completing incident reports. He climbed stairs to avoid electronic records, carrying supplies in a bag with zip ties, duct tape, chloroform-soaked cloth. Morrison sat at the break room table, focused on paperwork, sipping cold coffee. She looked up when Chen appeared, smiling with casual warmth. "Evening, David. Working late tonight?" "Excuse me, Mrs. Morrison," Chen said quietly, voice barely steady. "There's a water leak on 12 affecting the electrical panel. Could you take a look?" Morrison trusted him completely after 4 years working together. She followed him to the 12th floor utility room, chatting casually about her daughter starting Ohio State, asking if Chen had advice for international students. In the windowless space filled with humming machinery and industrial cleaning supply smells, Chen's desperation overcame his lifelong gentleness. The chloroform took longer than expected. Morrison fought back strongly when she realized what was happening, police training activating despite chemical effects. She scratched Chen's arms, knocked over a maintenance cart with echoing crash, nearly reached her radio before chloroform overcame resistance. Chen had anticipated quick, clean incapacitation based on Hollywood portrayals. Reality was violent and traumatic. Morrison's struggle forced more chloroform use than planned. Chen spent terrifying minutes unsure if she was breathing properly, checking pulse repeatedly, positioning to prevent choking. When Morrison lost consciousness, Chen zip-tied hands and feet with practiced motions. He applied duct tape carefully, ensuring nose breathing, moved her to a supply closet where she'd be safe but undiscoverable. He took her keycard and radio, returned to custodial duties for 30 minutes to re-establish normal routine. 2:47 a.m., Chen used both keycards accessing the vault's secondary entrance. Heavy door opened with soft electronic beep, revealing cramped space lined with safety deposit boxes and 3 large safes. 2 were time-locked until Monday, but the third, containing weekend cash reserves, opened with Morrison's card and numerical code Chen had observed during surveillance. Inside, neat bill stacks organized by denomination, bearer bonds in protective sleeves, precious metal certificates in fireproof containers. Chen filled 2 custodial trash bags systematically with cash and transportable bonds, avoiding precious metals and quickly tracked paperwork. The money felt surreal, more than he'd seen, earned in 10 years, enough to save his mother's life and change his forever. Each stack represented months of salary, years of saving, decades of security. Chen worked quickly but carefully, checking serial numbers against traceable bill types, taking smaller denominations easier to transport and exchange. The process took 12 minutes. He left the vault exactly as found, closing safe and access doors, wiping touch surfaces, repositioning items to match original locations. He returned Morrison's keycard, left her radio near the utility room, suggesting attack during routine patrol rather than targeted access theft. Chen completed remaining custodial duties with mechanical precision, leaving at normal 6 a.m. departure, nodding to arriving day shift security, exchanging casual pleasantries. Nothing suggested he carried nearly $4 million stolen dollars. Chen drove to his apartment, counting with shaking hands. $3,142,000 cash, $180,000 bearer bonds. Money covered his kitchen table, more wealth than his family had ever possessed, enough for treatment with sufficient remaining to disappear permanently. Reality was overwhelming. Chen sat surrounded by more money than spendable in lifetimes, obtained through 15 criminal minutes that took months to plan and would define his remaining life. He divided money according to rehearsed plan, $2.8 million into heavy duffel bag for Columbus hiding locations, $500,000 into smaller bag for initial escape, remaining $442,000 distributed between apartment, car, and Akron safety deposit box. 7:30 a.m. Chen called May, knowing this was his last contact from real identity. David, did you find a way to get the money? I'm wiring funds for mother's treatment today. $400,000 will be in your account Monday. Take her to Houston immediately. David, how did you get so much money? What did you do? Don't ask questions, just save her. May, I love you both. I may not call again for a while. He hung up, immediately calling Western Union for international transfer. The process required identification, creating clear paper trails linking him to stolen funds. But Chen no longer cared about tracks. His mother's life mattered more than freedom. 8:15 a.m. Chen completed financial arrangements, hidden most stolen money throughout Columbus, prepared for departure. He left family letters on kitchen table, changed into tourist clothes, drove to downtown Greyhound Station. Chen purchased Cincinnati ticket under James Liu, identity established using falsified documents. Different clothes, shaved head, one bag containing $500,000 in travel supplies. The board ticket clerk processed his transaction without interest. Chen's plan: travel slowly south and west using cash payments and false identities until establishing in Mexico or Central America. Cincinnati, then Memphis, Dallas, eventually Laredo for border crossing, and new life with hiding money. The Cincinnati bus departed 9:45 a.m., carrying Chen from his only known life toward uncertain future, built on stolen money and desperate hope. For 46 hours, the plan worked perfectly. Morrison was discovered 7:30 a.m. Friday by Jerry Patterson, day shift custodial supervisor. Patterson found Morrison conscious but confused, dehydrated and disoriented from chloroform, but physically unharmed beyond struggle scrapes. First responders noted chemical burns around nose and mouth, indicating chloroform exposure. She was transported to Ohio State Wexner Medical Center for observation of potential respiratory complications. Morrison's attack account was clear but limited, remembering Chen requesting leak investigation, following him to utility room, then waking restrained. No assault memory, consistent with chloroform exposure. The theft wasn't discovered until Monday morning, August 21st, when armored car service arrived for scheduled pickup, finding the vault $3.7 million short. Detective Sarah Martinez was assigned within hours. Martinez was a 15-year veteran with extensive white-collar crime experience. She immediately correlated Morrison's assault timing with the theft, establishing same perpetrator responsibility. Monday evening, detectives connected Morrison's assault to missing money, identified Chen as the only person with access and opportunity. At his Clintonville apartment, 9:30 p.m., they found letters on kitchen table and $800,000 cash hidden throughout rooms. Martinez read letters aloud to her partner, both struck by genuine anguish and love, motivating Chen's actions. Letters explained everything: mother's diagnosis, treatment costs, planning months, consequence acceptance. Chen never intended personal gain. Everything was about saving his mother. Tuesday morning, APB issued for Chen's arrest. Photograph distributed to Midwest law enforcement. His Honda Civic found at Greyhound Station, providing clear escape method and direction indication. Chen's planned escape began unraveling in Dallas. Monday, August 21st, 2017, Chen sat in Dallas McDonald's watching his crime coverage on restaurant TV. Columbus News reported the theft as the city's largest recent history. His employee photo displayed prominently alongside nationwide manhunt details. The photograph was from 7 years earlier. Chen looked younger, less careworn, still optimistic about American prospects. Seeing his face broadcast nationwide made him realize his exposure, despite appearance changes and false identification. News coverage was thorough and damaging. Reporters interviewed former colleagues, building manager, grocery store clerk. Each described him as quiet, reliable, completely unexpected major theft suspect. Coverage painted him sympathetically, desperate man driven by dying mother love, but made clear law enforcement's serious capture efforts. Most troubling, investigators recovered substantial cash amounts from his apartment, meaning backup resources found faster than anticipated. Chen still had $500,000 in Akron box access, but his Columbus fund retrieval plan was impossible. The report updated Janet Morrison's condition, hitting Chen like physical blow. Morrison was hospitalized not just for observation, but treating respiratory chemical burns and chloroform poisoning complications. The reporter mentioned Morrison was a 25-year law enforcement veteran and grandmother of 3. Chen never intended serious injury. His research suggested chloroform caused quick, temporary unconsciousness with minimal side effects. Reality, potentially permanent damage to a woman always treating him kindly, created unbearable guilt. But news also contained hope. May had been contacted by reporters. Her statement indicated their mother was Houston-bound for MD Anderson treatment. Chen's wired money arrived as promised. Experimental therapy program accepted his mother as patient. 2:30 p.m. Monday. Chen called May from Dallas bus station payphone using cash purchase calling card. May was hysterical, having learned about theft from international news coverage. Their mother's Houston arrival was complicated by reporters and investigators wanting to question the family about Chen's crime. Money intended to save their mother's life instead brought shame and scrutiny, worsening her condition. "David, what have you done? Police came to Mother's hospital room. Reporters follow us everywhere. She knows everything. Where the money came from." Chen explained stealing money for treatment, that he could remain hidden for her therapy completion. Everything motivated by love rather than greed. But May's response shattered his justifications. "She doesn't want the money, David. She's refusing treatment. She'd rather die than live knowing her son became criminal for her. Doctors try convincing her, but she won't listen. She says she failed as mother if children think crime is acceptable to save her." Chen stood at that payphone 17 minutes, listening to May describe their mother's shame and heartbreak. Everything he'd risked, everyone he'd hurt, was to save the woman now choosing death over accepting stolen money. Their mother was raised in rural Taiwan poverty, where honor and integrity were valued above material wealth. She'd immigrated to America with nothing but hope, working multiple jobs, supporting family while maintaining unwavering ethical principles. Her son committing violent crime for her medical care was more devastating than cancer itself. "She keeps saying it's her fault," May continued through tears. "She should have raised you better, taught you some prices are too high. David, she's getting worse. Stress is killing her faster than cancer." For the first time since childhood, Chen cried publicly. Bus station travelers gave him space, assuming he'd received death news. In a sense, he had. The mother he'd tried saving was gone, replaced by a woman who'd rather die than live with knowledge of what her son became. The irony was crushing. Chen committed the perfect crime, stolen enough to save his mother 10 times over, executed a nearly successful escape plan. But his mother's reaction made success meaningless. He'd thought he was saving her life. Instead, he destroyed her will to live. Chen made 2 afternoon phone calls. First to Midwest Financial Trust, speaking to receptionists, requesting security department transfer. When Detective Martinez answered, Chen identified himself, offered to return all remaining money for sentencing consideration. "Mr. Chen, where are you now?" Martinez asked, voice carefully neutral. "Dallas. I have most money with me. I never spent any except for mother's treatment. I'll give exact location if you promise Mrs. Morrison will be okay." Martinez confirmed Morrison was recovering without permanent damage. She assured Chen his cooperation would be noted during prosecution, though couldn't make specific sentencing promises. The 12-minute conversation included Chen providing detailed escape route information and additional Columbus fund locations. Second call to Columbus Police Department main number, where Chen spoke to dispatcher, provided exact Dallas Greyhound station location. He described appearance, clothing, willingness to surrender without resistance. Then he sat on bench outside terminal, two bags containing $487,000 beside him, waiting for arrest. The wait lasted 3 hours, 42 minutes. Chen spent time thinking about his mother's money refusal that cost him everything. Morrison's undeserved suffering, Choice series bringing him to this moment. He watched travelers, vacationing families, business people, young adults starting adventures, wondering if any could understand desperation driving him to crime. Several people approached during the wait, concerned about his obvious distress. Teenage girl offered bottled water. Elderly man asked about medical attention needs. Young mother with 2 children gave granola bar, asked if he had somewhere to go. Chen accepted kindness gratefully, knowing it might be his last human compassion for years. Detective Martinez and partner James Wilson arrived at Dallas bus station 6:45 p.m., Monday, August 21st. They'd flown Columbus to Dallas, accompanied by 2 Dallas officers assisting with arrest and evidence collection. They found Chen exactly where promised, sitting on bench with 2 bags beside him. He looked smaller, more fragile than his employee photograph suggested, aged by stress and guilt, appearing older than 52 years. When Martinez approached and identified herself, Chen stood calmly, extended hands for handcuffs. "Mr. Chen, you're under arrest for grand theft, assault, and federal charges related to transporting stolen money across state lines," Martinez read from prepared statement. "You have the right to remain silent." Chen listened to Miranda rights without interruption, then said quietly, "I understand. I want to cooperate completely. The money is in those bags, $487,000. I haven't spent any except what I sent to my mother." The arrest was processed quickly and professionally. Chen's cooperation was complete and immediate, providing detailed remaining money information, including Akron's safety deposit box location and specific vault access method. He expressed genuine remorse for Morrison's injuries, asked repeatedly about her condition and prognosis. Dallas police processed Chen before transferring custody to Columbus authorities. During paperwork, Chen requested one more call to his Taiwan sister. Martinez approved, monitoring for security but allowing privacy for what she understood might be final family contact for years. Return trip to Columbus occurred Tuesday, August 22nd. Chen spent the flight staring out windows at American landscape below, thinking about his mother's money refusal that cost him everything. The irony wasn't lost. Returning to Ohio with more money than ever legally possessed, but now evidence in his criminal case rather than intended salvation. During Chicago layover, Martinez allowed Chen one final Taiwan call. The 3-minute conversation contained news defining Chen's remaining life. May answered first ring, voice hollow with exhaustion and grief. "David, where are you?" "I'm coming back to Columbus. I've been arrested. I'm returning all money and accepting responsibility. How is mother?" Silence lasted nearly 30 seconds. When May spoke, words hit Chen like physical blows. "She died 6 hours ago, David. She held on just long enough to learn you were safe and in custody. Doctor said she'd been waiting for that news." Her final words were in Mandarin. "Tell David I love him, but I cannot forgive what he did to that woman." Chen's mother died in Houston hospital room, surrounded by medical equipment that could have extended her life but unable to accept treatment, paid with stolen money. She chose death over compromising principles, making Chen's crime not only pointless, but actively harmful to the person he'd intended saving. Knowledge that his mother died while he sat in police station, surrounded by money he'd stolen to save her life, created grief so profound Chen couldn't speak for the remaining Columbus flight. Martinez, despite professional obligations, found herself moved by Chen's obvious anguish, allowed him to grieve without interruption. Chen was processed through Franklin County Jail Tuesday evening, charged with grand theft first degree, assault, and federal interstate stolen property transport crimes. Bail set at $500,000, normally impossible for his financial background, but Chen had sufficient evidence lockup cash to cover bond. However, Chen chose jail over bail posting. When court-appointed attorney Maria Santos asked why he wouldn't accept release, Chen explained he had nowhere to go. no reason delaying case resolution. His mother was dead, sister dealt with grief and shame. Former Columbus life was impossible to resume. Santos was a 15-year Franklin County public defender veteran who'd handled hundreds of theft cases. But Chen's situation was unlike anything in her experience. Her client committed one of Columbus history's largest thefts but gained nothing personally. He'd stolen nearly $4 million, spent less than 1% on personal needs, eager to accept responsibility and punishment. David, you could potentially fight some charges, Santos explained during their first meeting. Your motive was sympathetic. You cooperated fully. You've returned almost all money. A jury might be inclined toward leniency. Chen shook his head. I don't want leniency. I want to serve time and try making amends for what I did to Mrs. Morrison. My mother died knowing I was criminal. Fighting charges won't change that. Santos rarely encountered clients so determined to accept maximum punishment. Chen's grief over his mother's death and guilt over Morrison's injuries created psychological states where punishment felt necessary and appropriate. He refused plea bargains that might reduce sentencing, insisting he deserved whatever legal consequences. Chen's legal proceedings moved swiftly through Franklin County courts, accelerated by complete cooperation and refusal contesting charges. He pleaded guilty to all charges, rejecting potential arguments about diminished capacity, duress, or sympathetic circumstances. November 15, 2017, sentencing hearing drew significant media attention due to large amounts involved and unusual circumstances. Janet Morrison attended, walking slowly with a cane needed since developing balance problems following chloroform exposure. Your Honor, I want to start saying I don't hate David Chen, Morrison began. I understand why he did what he did. I'm a mother myself, can imagine desperation watching his mother die from cancer. Morrison described lasting impact, forced early retirement, nightmares, panic attacks when alone with unknown people, fundamentally damaged trust sense, but understanding his motivation doesn't excuse what he did to me. David had access because I trusted him. We worked together for years. He used that trust to hurt me, and that betrayal is something I struggle with daily. When Morrison finished testimony, she made unexpected request. Your Honor, I'd like to speak directly to David, if allowed. Judge Williams granted request. Morrison turned facing Chen directly. David, I want you to know that I forgive you. I don't forgive what you did to me. Can't pretend your reasons excuse actions. But I forgive you as a person who made terrible choice in impossible circumstances. I hope you can find a way to forgive yourself and build life honoring your mother's memory. Chen stood to respond. Mrs. Morrison, I can never forgive myself for what I did to you. You trusted me, and I betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Saying sorry doesn't repair harm I caused, but I want you on knowing I think about what I did to you every day. I will spend my remaining life trying to become worthy of the forgiveness you've offered. Judge Williams noted Chen's case was unusual in both scale and human complexity. She acknowledged cooperation, genuine remorse, and tragic circumstances driving him to crime. However, she emphasized violent theft couldn't be excused regardless of perpetrator motivation. Chen was sentenced to 12 years federal prison with parole possibility after 8 years. The sentence reflected both crime seriousness and mitigating factors. Williams recommended Chen serve time at facilities allowing educational and rehabilitation program participation. Of $3,942,000 stolen, investigators recovered $3,289,000. Remaining $53,000 had been spent on travel expenses, escape supplies, and wire transfer fees. Midwest Financial implemented new security protocols, including paired overnight security teams and enhanced vault monitoring, eliminating Chen's exploited blind spots. Chen began serving sentence at Federal Correctional Institution in Elkton, Ohio. He was assigned library work and volunteered teaching English as second language classes to other inmates. Letters from Sister May arrived regularly. May had immigrated to San Francisco, working as translator for social services agencies. During second prison year, Chen received unexpected letter from Janet Morrison. She wrote that understanding his circumstances and seeing genuine remorse had led to different perspective. David Warner Morrison wrote, I see you as a human being who made terrible choices for understandable reasons. I hope you can find peace with what you did and use remaining prison time to prepare for better life when released. Morrison's letter prompted Chen to write his first response, expressing ongoing remorse and gratitude for her willingness to see him as more than just the person who hurt her. Their correspondence developed over following years. Not friendship, but mutual healing, acknowledging both harm done and possibility of moving beyond it. During fourth prison year, Chen received news that would test everything he'd learned about forgiveness and moving forward. Janet Morrison had been diagnosed with breast cancer, undergoing treatment at the same hospital where Chen's mother died, Ohio State Wexner Medical Center. The irony was overwhelming and devastating. The woman Chen had assaulted while desperately trying to save his mother from cancer was now fighting the same disease that had driven him to crime. Morrison's diagnosis letter was characteristically matter-of-fact, focusing on treatment plans rather than the emotional weight of the circular tragedy. "I know this might seem strange to you," Morrison wrote, "but I wanted you hearing this news from me rather than through other channels. The doctors are optimistic about my treatment, and I have good insurance and family support. I'm telling you this not because I expect anything from you, but because our correspondence has become important to me, and I don't want there to be secrets between us." Chen spent 4 sleepless nights after receiving Morrison's letter, tortured by the thought that the woman he'd hurt was now facing the exact same battle that had driven him to hurt her in the first place. The circular nature of the situation felt like cosmic punishment, or perhaps an opportunity for him to respond differently than he had when faced with his mother's terminal illness. The guilt was suffocating. Chen had attacked Morrison to steal money for cancer treatment, and now she needed cancer treatment herself. Every prayer he'd once offered for his mother's healing now felt like mockery when directed toward Morrison's recovery. How could he ask for her healing when he was the one who had harmed her? Chen wrote back immediately, offering to help in any way possible and expressing desperate hope for Morrison's recovery. He also made a decision that surprised his prison counselors. He arranged to donate bone marrow to the National Marrow Donor Program, hoping his tissue type might match someone in need. It was a small gesture, but it represented Chen's desire to save lives rather than destroy them. Morrison's response to his offer was characteristically direct, but unexpectedly gentle. "David, the best thing you can do for me is continue the work you're doing in prison and prepare yourself to live a meaningful life when you're released. I don't need your help fighting cancer, but I do need to know that what happened between us led to something positive rather than just destruction and pain." Over the following months, Chen followed Morrison's treatment progress through their letters, finding himself praying for her recovery with the same intensity he'd once prayed for his mother's healing. The crucial difference was that his prayers were no longer accompanied by desperate schemes or moral compromises. They were simply expressions of hope and genuine concern for another human being's well-being. Chen began volunteering in the prison's medical unit, helping elderly inmates navigate their own health crises and learning about cancer treatment options and support systems. He read everything available about breast cancer, not to plan another crime, but to better understand what Morrison was enduring and how he might offer meaningful support through their correspondence. The months of Morrison's treatment became a period of intense reflection for Chen. He realized that his mother's cancer had driven him to violence because he'd felt powerless and alone. Now, watching Morrison face the same disease with courage and community support, he began to understand what he should have done differently. Asked for help, sought community, accepted assistance from others instead of turning to crime. Morrison's cancer treatment was successful. After 6 months of chemotherapy and radiation, she was declared disease-free. Her recovery became a source of profound hope for Chen, proof that sometimes prayer, medical science, and community support could achieve what his theft and violence had utterly failed to accomplish. When Morrison wrote to share the news of her recovery, she included something that changed Chen's understanding of forgiveness forever. "David, going through cancer treatment made me realize something important. When people are dying, what they need most isn't money, it's love, presence, and community. Your mother would have been surrounded by love regardless of whether you could afford experimental treatment. That love would have been worth more than any amount of stolen money. I hope you can understand that now." March 15th, 2025, exactly 8 years after the life-changing phone call, David Chen was released on parole. May met him at prison gates. He moved to San Francisco, found work as night custodian, and volunteered helping immigrants navigate crises legally. Every August 18th, Chen observed personal ritual on his crime anniversary. In 2025, he spent the day helping Taiwan immigrant Mrs. Liu get leukemia treatment for her 6-year-old son. "You saved my son's life today. Mrs. Liu said as they parted. For the first time since his mother's death, Chen had helped save someone's life through legal means. That evening, Chen wrote his annual letter to Morrison. 3 weeks later, her response arrived. I cannot say I completely forgive you. That's a process that may take my remaining life. But I no longer carry active anger about what happened between us. I see you as someone who learned from terrible choices and spent years trying to repair what could be repaired. The money David Chen stole to save his mother's life ultimately saved no one. It couldn't buy the treatment that might have extended her life, couldn't purchase forgiveness, couldn't bridge the gap between desperate love and moral compromise. His perfect crime accomplished nothing except teaching him some prices are too high to pay, even for people we love most. Chen's mother died knowing he was criminal. His freedom was forfeit for 8 years. Janet Morrison was injured and traumatized. Yet Chen learned redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about refusing to let past mistakes define future choices. The man who'd been invisible to others discovered the hardest person to hide from was himself. Every morning, Chen chose honest living and helping others. Not because these actions erased his crime, but because they represented the person his mother tried raising and the person Morrison deserved working alongside. In quiet moments, Chen wondered what would have happened if he'd asked for help instead of resorting to theft. These questions would never have answers, but served as reminders that desperation could blind people to alternatives, that pride could prevent help requests. David Chen had committed what seemed the perfect crime and lost everything that mattered. The theft supposed to save his mother's life instead taught him how to save his own soul, one honest day at a time. It wasn't the salvation he'd planned, but it was the redemption he'd earned through years of living with integrity while carrying the weight of irreversible mistakes. The man who'd stolen millions to save one life learned the only life he could truly save was his own. March 15, 2025, exactly 8 years after the life-changing phone call, David Chen was released on parole. May met him at prison gates. He moved to San Francisco, found work as night custodian, and volunteered helping immigrants navigate crises legally. Every August 18th, Chen observed personal ritual on his crime anniversary. In 2025, he spent the day helping Taiwan immigrant Mrs. Liu get leukemia treatment for her 6-year-old son. You saved my son's life today, Mrs. Liu said as they parted. For the first time since his mother's death, Chen had helped save someone's life through legal means. That evening, Chen wrote his annual letter to Morrison. 3 weeks later, her response arrived. I cannot say I completely forgive you. That's a process that may take my remaining life. But I no longer carry active anger about what happened between us. I see you as someone who learned from terrible choices and spent years trying to repair what could be repaired. The money David Chen stole to save his mother's life ultimately saved no one. It couldn't buy the treatment that might have extended her life, couldn't purchase forgiveness, couldn't bridge the gap between desperate love and moral compromise. His perfect crime accomplished nothing except teaching him some prices are too high to pay, even for people we love most. Chen's mother died knowing he was criminal. His freedom was forfeit for 8 years. Janet Morrison was injured and traumatized. Yet Chen learned redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about refusing to let past mistakes define future choices. The man who'd been invisible to others discovered the hardest person to hide from was himself. Every morning, Chen chose honest living and helping others. Not because these actions erased his crime, but because they represented the person his mother tried raising and the person Morrison deserved working alongside. In quiet moments, Chen wondered what would have happened if he'd asked for help instead of resorting to theft. These questions would never have answers, but served as reminders that desperation could blind people to alternatives, that pride could prevent help requests. David Chen had committed what seemed the perfect crime and lost everything that mattered. The theft supposed to save his mother's life instead taught him how to save his own soul, one honest day at a time. It wasn't the salvation he'd planned, but it was the redemption he'd earned through years of living with integrity while carrying the weight of irreversible mistakes. The man who'd stolen millions to save one life learned the only life he could truly save was his own.